Excellent. Thank you for those that have joined us. Good morning. Thanks for joining this session on accessibility in your hotel and how tech can help. I'm Ross Calladine. I'm the Head of Business Support at Visit England. So we're part of the National Tourism Agency along with Visit Britain. I'm delighted to be chairing this discussion. As part of my role at Visit England, I lead our work programme on accessible tourism. So we're driving the industry towards achieving the government's ambition for the whole of the UK to become the most accessible tourism destination in Europe. I was appointed Disability and Access Ambassador for Tourism by the UK government back in January last year, and that was alongside about 20 other ambassadors, including Kate Nichols, who's the CEO of UK Hospitality. She's the ambassador for the hospitality sector. Accessibility really is a key aspect of equality, diversity and inclusion. And over the next 45 minutes, we'll hear from our panelists how it's not just a responsibility, but a huge opportunity for you and your businesses. The panel will explore accessible hotel tech really in its widest form, from hardware and software to interior design. We really want to give you valuable insight and ideas to turbocharge your own accessibility journey. So before I introduce the panelists, I'd like to just ask those that are in the session now to rate the confidence that you have in your hotel or hospitality venue in providing quality experience for guests with accessibility requirements, such as disabled people. So 1 is going to be if you have no confidence, and 10 is going to be that you're extremely confident in that offer. So if you can be as honest as possible, if you'd rate your quality of experiences as around 1 to 2, raise your hand. Or 3 to 4. 5 to 6, 7 to 8, 7 to 8, or 9 to 10. Okay, a few abstaining there. So hopefully we can, through the course of the 45 minutes, improve your confidence in this area. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce our panel members today. We're joined by Fiona Jarvis, Blue Badge Styles. So Fiona was the founder of Blue Badge Style. She was a sales manager successfully selling large software systems to financial institutions. Becoming progressively disabled, she launched a website and app called bluebadgestyle.com, and it's responsible for reviewing venues on their style alongside their accessibility. She then developed access galleries for venues to display their accessibility or not, and was awarded the EIB Social Innovation Award and recognition from the UN Zero Project. Along with Robin Shepherd of Bespoke Hotels, she co-founded the Blue Badge Access Awards, which we'll hear a little bit more about today, and Blue Badge Access Consulting. That's all about inspiring better design, celebrating accessible venues and improving access for all. For her work in the built environment, she was awarded honorary fellowship by RIBA in 2021, and she's vice chair of the Institute of Hospitality DEI Future Forum. And Fiona says, above all, she wants disabled people to go out and enjoy life. Welcome, Fiona. I'm also joined by Peter Hayes, CEO and founder of Translate Live. So Peter is CEO, as I say, of the company, an emerging global leader in advanced AI, real-time language access. He's also the founder and the chairman of VTC Secure. That's a decade-old company providing accessibility technology to citizens with disabilities all the way around the world. He's personally implemented IT systems in the majority of US federal government agencies, including intelligence agencies, DHS, branches of the US military, and has directly worked with 100 Fortune 500 companies to implement accessible communication solutions. So he's designed, implemented, and grown tech platforms for 3 startups, resulting in combined exits of over $500 million. Now, a Florida resident, Maryland native, Peter's passion is applying state-of-the-art advancements in technology to solve complex communication challenges for underserved communities, as well as building sandcastles on the beach. Thanks, Peter, for joining us today. And last but not least, I'd like to welcome Ed. So Ed's the CEO of MotionSpot, founded the inclusive design business in 2012 after his friend and co-founder James Taylor was paralyzed after a diving accident and left very underwhelmed by the clinical design and poor quality of adaptations in his home. Ed's built MotionSpot into a REBA award-winning industry leader in inclusive design and provider of innovative, accessible products to the hospitality industry as long as other sectors. MotionSpot is helping to transform spaces through beautiful design, inclusive environments that deliver independence for anyone with a disability, as well as those with sensory and cognitive needs, including neurodiversity. Ed was also the government sector champion for the design of accessible spaces and products for a 3-year term from 2019 to 2022. So welcome to Ed, Peter and Fiona. And we'll start the discussion now. And I want to open with our first question to the panel. When we talk of accessibility in hospitality, who exactly are we seeking to improve the customer experience for? Maybe Fiona, you would like to go first on that one.
Obviously the most obvious group of people would be people with disabilities. But you've also got to think about, people just who are a little bit older, who have some sort of issues getting in or out of places. Also, people with kids and pushchairs, they need to be able to access places easily as well. So it's not just people who are disabled. And disabled is not just a wheelchair. There's only 10% of the disabled population uses a wheelchair. So you've got to deal with neurodiversity, partial hearing, partial sight, and just people who have a little bit of a small problem with their mobility, not just a wheelchair.
Great, thanks Fiona. Anyone else want to come in on that? Peter?
I think it's also, if we're lucky enough to live old enough, we will end up with some type of disability. And there are a lot of times where you are temporarily disabled. Maybe you have headphones on, or like you said, a baby in a stroller, the same access you would use for a wheelchair. So it's not just a person with a noticeable disability, but it's a wide range, and people with temporary disabilities as well.
Excellent.
And just to add to that, over the last 10 years, we've seen a real step change in understanding that, to Fiona's point, it's not just about designing hospitality that's wheelchair accessible. How can you design for the 10% of wheelchair users, but also the 90% of people who may have another physical, cognitive, sensory need, including neurodiversity? But as an inclusive design business, we also think slightly broader than accessibility and take that into accessibility for someone with of different faith, ethnic background and gender. So thinking about accessibility at its widest points is really important. The other thing I'd say is it's really important to think not just about the guests who may be staying with you, who may have a disability, but also your employees. That is a huge opportunity for accommodation providers.
Great. So what you're saying is that we're really talking to a very broad spectrum. We're not just talking about a limited group of people here, and we're also looking at colleagues and staff as well as the customer experience as well.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
And I think you have to understand as well is that as the population ages, they reckon that most of the money in the population is going to be in people over 45, and they're always going to have some sort of accessibility issue.
Of course, the correlation of impairment with age is quite pronounced. Thank you. So to come on really to the why then, why do you think it's so important to integrate accessibility into the hotel experience and the guest experience? Maybe Ed, would you like to open on that one?
I think from my perspective, getting accessibility right in hospitality is not just financially a good thing to do, it's socially the right thing to do. There is such a demand in our marketplace, 14 million disabled people spending £15.3 billion a year looking for accessible accommodation. By providing accessible accommodation, hoteliers or B&B providers or restaurant owners see a huge increase in loyalty and repeat bookings. We completed a hotel recently in Manchester where the hotel owner said that someone had already stayed 50 times this year who was a wheelchair user. And that just goes to show the repeat bookings and higher average spend that's there. But again, connected to my point about employees at the start, creating accessible environments mean that you can reach a wider talent pool. You know, we've got 1 million people out of work in this country at the moment, many of whom have a disability. So making your venue more accessible will make you a more accommodating and inclusive employer.
Anyone else want to come in there on the why? Fiona?
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear what you said then.
Sorry, yes, just to add on why businesses should really be looking to be more welcoming and open.
Well, as Ed said, it's the right thing to do. Why would you exclude 25% of the population from your establishment? And when I say 25%, that's not just the disabled person, it's the people who go with them. I've been to restaurants that you've turned up, you've phoned 5 times saying, yes, it's accessible, yes, it's step-free. And then when I get to the front door, there's 10 steps to get in. And I think, well, you know, I can't fly, I'm not a Dalek, what do you want me to do? So 3 people from the restaurant have to come out, lift me up and take me in. And on one occasion, they dropped me. Now, that didn't just upset me. I mean, I can cope with it. It upset the 5 people who were with me. And guess what? All 6 of us will never, ever go to that restaurant again. They've lost my business, and my money's as good as anyone's.
But I guess you would say that if the counter was true, and for places that provide you with an excellent experience, do you find you have loyalty to such places?
Yeah, we will always go back to somewhere that's treated us well, basically. Same as any customer, you know, we're no different. We'll go somewhere where we feel comfortable. And that has to be somewhere that's accessible.
Excellent, thank you. And I think we've just touched on this, but we'll expand the conversation around the financial benefits of making hospitality venues more accessible. What really is that commercial imperative and opportunity? Peter, do you have thoughts on that?
So if you can't hear, you're deaf or hard of hearing, how do you order room service if you can only do it through the phone? So there are ways to increase revenue. How do you sell trips and excursions and other things, and even timeshares, whatever else it might be at the hotel? But I think another big part of it is that loyalty. I know there's one hotel we worked with in Orlando area. The National Association for the Blind had their conference there. They provided all of the accessibility necessary, and they've been doing it at that same hotel for 20 years. I mean, there's a weekend there where they're sold out every single time. So there's that loyalty. And if I know that I'm going to be accommodated for and I have a good time, I'm far more likely to return there as opposed to going somewhere else.
Yeah, and events is a really big driver. So Ed, I think there's an example of a hotel you've worked with in Manchester where by having accessible facilities, it's driven event bookings. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so we completed a hotel called Hotel Brooklyn in Manchester a little over a year ago now. And as part of our work with them, we worked with the hotel management to understand how did the work that they'd done from the outset of the design process influence the commercials longer term. And they ran a commercial analysis across a 12-month period and found that the 18 accessible bedrooms and bathrooms that had been designed and installed at Hotel Brooklyn had generated them an additional £217,000 of revenue per year in comparison to the non-accessible rooms. But to your point on events, Ross, they found that of that on top of that 217,000, there was an additional £85,000 worth of revenue for event bookings, where one of the event organisers, or it had been disabled, or it had been a disability event. So again, it proves that if you think about accessible and inclusive design at the early stage of a hotel development, the financial benefit is there longer term.
Yes, Peter.
There's 2 other significant ones. One is this new technology for people with disabilities can now also be rented to the conferences and people at your hotels, for example, to caption everyone in any language. This can be something that can be sold. And to one of Ed's other points, when you hire people with disabilities and they can work in your establishment, they are extremely loyal. They work hard, and you don't have that turnover. They know they can work there. They know they can be effective. They're happier in their job, and that leads to higher revenue for the hotel.
Excellent. Fiona, you have a point there?
No,
No?
you carry on.
So if we move the discussion on to thinking about design of hotels, can you shed some light on the types of design principles, innovative technology that is helping to make accommodation more accessible? Ed, I'll start with you on that one.
So when it comes to accessible design principles, obviously, when you're designing a hotel or any venue, you need to think about the fundamentals before you think about the technology. So the fundamentals are, can someone freely access that space? Is the lighting, the acoustics, the materials you're using all going to work for the individuals within that space? But when you've got the fundamentals right, there's a real opportunity to overlay some really clever technology on top of that. So to give some examples of the type of tech on the market at the moment, again, we recently completed a hotel in London where they wanted a ceiling track hoist in a bedroom. They didn't actually want it. We said, we think that you should have at least one of your bedrooms to have a ceiling track hoist, because if you have a guest with a complex disability, how are they going to be able to be moved from bed into wheelchair? And they said, okay, that's fine, but we don't want the medical looking hoist motor on show. So what we did was we disguised the hoist into the soffit of the ceiling and made the track a lighting detail, and then disguised the hoist motor in a cupboard, which meant that if the room wasn't being used by someone who needed a concealed hoist, they wouldn't even know it was there. But it's an amazing bit of tech to deliver greater accessibility.
And Fiona, this is what you talked to about, maintaining a stylish environment alongside it being accessible for as many people as possible.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Blue Badge Style's all about. It's about reviewing places primarily based on style, and then, by the way, are you accessible? And I don't think they're mutually exclusive. You can have both. There's some beautiful grab rails and stuff you can put into hotels that you can take off if you want to use that room for an able-bodied person, and put it back in if you want to put it in for a disabled person. But when it comes to technology, what we're trying to do is we produce access galleries which tell the disabled person right up front on the website, what is your accessible journey through the hotel like? And we do that with high quality photos, just like you'd expect to see of your, if you're able-bodied looking at a bedroom suite, you've got the disabled access suite. And we want to augment that with virtual reality, and include lots of new developments that are coming online with regard to the metaverse, so that a disabled person, before they go anywhere, can actually go through or walk through a venue and look at all the different aspects that are relevant to them.
Excellent. So the technology advancements can really help in the information provision as well as the actual design of the built environment.
That's right. I mean, disabled people are really looking forward to robots that can look after them without having the indignity of having somebody else look after them or drop them. We're also looking forward to the fact that virtual reality will actually transport us as physically able people as well through a venue. It's just going to be amazing. The only issue you have with AI, though, is the UN reported that as long as you have white male programmers programming AI, you're going to have bias in there. And one of the biases would be towards disabled people being deviant, which we're not, by the way. We're just a little bit less able than everybody else. Okay.
So there's some risks with AI as well as opportunities. Ed,
just building on your point, Fiona, about your access galleries. If you as a venue want to get across how accessible a venue is to potential people visiting, there's no better way of being able to show really good images and video of the features. Disabled people are experts in what works for them, And it's very hard for venues to communicate, this is exactly the access we have and this is exactly who it's going to be accessible for. Really think about how you can take great photography and use methods like access guides to be able to communicate that.
Yeah. Excellent. I'm going to move along on to communication. So, Peter, a question for you first. Why is accessible communication such an important aspect of customer satisfaction?
Well, I know in the United States, especially, there's about half the population that won't travel because they're afraid they won't be able to communicate. Sometimes that's language barriers. Sometimes that's I can't hear what's going on. If I'm afraid that when I get there, I'm not going to be able to do what I want to do or be able to relax, or if there's an emergency, then they don't leave their house in the first place. And so by ensuring that you can always connect no matter where you are in the hotel, speak in any language, have any conversation instantly captioned, being able to have wayfinding for the blind so that you can easily get around and know where things are. This is what makes people feel welcome. This makes them enjoy their time. I remember a story from one hotel. Someone came down who spoke a different language and was hard of hearing, could not communicate. The customer left so frustrated, and they ended up leaving the hotel with several days left in their stay. They were so upset.
So tell us a little bit how your company and other companies have tech available that breaks down those barriers.
So there's a lot of things now. You have chat applications for hotels. We have an application that allows you to speak in any language between any two devices. Captioning, it can speak out loud in multiple languages. You can even connect to a braille display for the deaf blind. So these are things that are all readily and cheaply available today that can easily be implemented. And I do want to say, as a focus on software, I've embarrassed myself many times by trying to build things without involving folks from the disabilities community, especially early on. And now we have people with different disabilities, different languages on the teams so that we don't do that anymore, and we build to what's actually needed. And I would encourage hire folks like Ed and seek these other groups out that know what they're doing, as opposed to trying to be accessible with communication or in other ways by guessing. Because as someone who didn't know anything about the industry when I started, I guessed wrong a lot.
Well, communication is key to a quality guest experience, getting that interaction
Absolutely.
right. So building on that, how do others think that technology can deliver an improved customer experience in hospitality? Ed, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think from an inclusive design perspective, technology plays an amazing role of being able to personalize the guest experience, as well as also remove barriers. Inclusive design is all about removing barriers within the built environment that cause people undue stress, and tech has an amazing opportunity to do that. So whether that is as part of the booking service, so if you were taking a booking from a disabled guest, actually, why can't you be asking questions around, are there any additional needs that you want within the hotel room? You know, would you like a grab rail located on your right-hand side or left-hand side? Would you like a wheelchair commode in the shower area? It's these types of personal experiences that make a significant difference, and technology has an amazing role to play in it. But I would say that you can't overlay technology on an inaccessible venue. You've got to get the fundamentals and the basics right of the venue, and then overlay technology on top of that.
So that really talks to a concept of the three key areas of accessibility: the service that your customer, the empathy and the disability awareness that staff are giving in the interaction, the information that we've spoke to recently, and then of course the built environment. So it's those three things that have to come together. It can't be one area of those alone.
Absolutely right.
Fiona?
Yeah, I mean, one example of how technology can get it wrong because it's not been built correctly, or is using bots to book hotel rooms. And this has happened to a number of people that I know. They've used the bot to try and book in and said, is your hotel accessible? And they've said, don't understand what you're saying. Please call reception. You go to the rest of the website and there's no phone number. So you just think, well, I can't even book to go and stay in your hotel or your restaurant. So why would I even bother trying to find out where the phone number is? The technology has to improve somewhat initially before you can do anything.
So huge potential in technologies such as bots,
Yeah.
but really has to be applied with the needs of disabled people very much in mind.
Yeah, and why has a programmer not put into the bot the fact that maybe that hotel has got, say, one accessible room? If you're not telling people about your accessibility, you're never going to get a return on investment for putting in the extra facilities.
And if you do, then we've heard some examples of the return in investment can be quite high and very rewarding commercially as well as socially. Okay, just to ask Peter, what is it about the recent advances in technology that are making it much easier and cheaper to implement technology for people with different impairments?
There's a very interesting convergence of technology that we live in today. First, there's AI, which even our product, we pay to have the processing done. Just in the last 2 or 3 years, that's been reduced by 70%. So you have AI that can do all these amazing things. It's getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. Then you have equipment. We've got full systems that are $90 that, full screens with different accessibility. They speak out loud. You can change colors, fonts, and sizes. So you have inexpensive equipment. Then you have this time where everybody has a phone. And there's these new web technologies, Web3 and WebRTC. And so now I don't even need to download an app. I don't need to do any of those things with my own device through different types of accessible access. I can, with a web browser, connect to anyone else in the world, connect when I walk in, order room service, go to the front desk, listen to a conference like this, all from my own phone without having to download anything for fractions of a penny. So that convergence of all those things at once. And again, I don't want to speak as much for the design space. I'm not an expert on that. But when it comes to the communication and the accessibility, it is not hard to do, and it's inexpensive. And AI is making even that easier. It'll build the app for you now.
Great, so really exciting times for the hospitality industry to get behind this tech. What changes are you seeing in the hospitality industry currently when it comes to the adoption of accessible design and technology? Where do you feel the industry is at the moment? Ed, would you like to take that one?
I think the industry is still on a bit of a journey as to where it can get to. There's much greater awareness across the industry that more needs to be done. There is significant pressure on accommodation, hospitality venues who aren't getting it right, who are either experiencing complaints, as Fiona's mentioned, or so many finance directors of hotels, it's the accessible rooms that sit at the bottom of their P&L. So there is a step change happening. There needs to be greater awareness, to Fiona's point right at the beginning, that we need to design for a much broader group of people. And as Peter mentioned, we need much greater contribution from people with lived experience, who can give their own perspectives on what works in a venue, what doesn't work in a venue. And then I'd really urge accommodation providers to really think about pushing the boundaries beyond minimum standards of building regulations, because everything that we've described today doesn't fit within a minimum standard. It is all an overlay that helps raise the bar beyond that to design accessible and inclusive environments, and technology plays such a key role in that.
Excellent, thank you, Ed. Fiona?
I mean, what I've found in hospitality is that front of house really want to help. They really want to get it right. But then when I talk to, say, the finance director or the owner of the property, they won't even spend £500 to put in an access gallery saying what the access in a restaurant or a hotel is like, because it affects the bottom line. What they don't realise is, as I said before, they're excluding a huge number of people from the population. Why? I don't know, but that is a step change that's yet to happen. And it will only happen if one of the owners of a hotel suddenly becomes disabled, I'm afraid.
So having that connection, whether it's within the family network or a friend network or a colleague, is that you're saying that that's often what generates
entirely, yeah. If we talk about Hotel Brooklyn and the work that Robin Shepherd has done there, it's been because he was a hotelier who became disabled. Proving my point.
Yes, and so to Ed's point, it's about hoteliers really connecting in with their disabled customer base, having conversations, learning, asking them whether they're having a good experience, and taking their tips and feedback and improving the offer as a result of that interaction with disabled people.
And not being afraid of asking those questions and understanding what they're not doing right. You know, the best hotels that are delivering the best access are ones that really listen to the feedback that is always posted on all the online forums about what's good and what's bad. And it's actually the ones that really listen to the challenging feedback and do something about it that are doing the best.
So this is a journey for hotels. It's not necessarily a pursuit of perfection, but it's an ongoing
Absolutely.
area.
I still don't know of a hotel anywhere in the world that is perfect when it comes to accessibility.
No.
There are some brilliant examples of doing access really well in a number of areas, but no hotel or venue has nailed it completely.
Okay. So that should reassure our audience and people watching down the line. Before I pass over to the audience for any questions, Fiona, I believe the Blue Badge Access Awards are happening in 2023 this year. Can you tell us a bit about these awards, explain how they'll drive innovation in hospitality?
Yeah, they are awards that celebrate design-led, thoughtful accessibility with style. And the awards range from, best bar, best restaurant, best luxury hotel, best boutique hotel. Also, we have two awards which have a £20,000 prize fund. One is for Best Guest Innovation, which is supported by Microsoft, and the other is Best Conceptual Design for a Disabled Guest, primarily in a hotel. We're having a press launch on the 25th of April in London, and then the final is on the 26th of October this year, which is always a fun event.
Brilliant. So look out for the Blue Badge Access Awards and get involved. Happy now to open up the floor, whether there's any questions. Just ask that you just raise your hand or indicate if you've got a question, and we'll bring the mic to you. Any questions at all, or any reflections? Yeah, we've got a question over here. We just bring the microphone to you. Thank you.
Hello. I'm a consultant for hotels mainly. I'd just like to ask Fiona about the criteria for the Blue Badge Award. Where do I find that?
If you go to our website, bluebadgeaccessawards.com, it's all there.
Right.
We're just rebuilding the site at the moment, so maybe some things aren't there or not, but please contact me afterwards and I can tell you all about it.
Right. We might have one or two possibly that could,
Okay,
depends on the criteria.
Yeah, no, basically it's, the style doesn't have to be luxurious, it just has to have something about it. It's
Right.
more than just going to McDonald's knowing there's a disabled toilet there.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the other awards we have is Best Bathroom or Best Toilet as well.
Yeah.
Please enter. If you
Right.
can't find it on the website, just get in contact with us.
Right. Because we are trying hard. Most of the hotels are trying to have, accessible wet rooms and at least one room that they can offer.
Yeah.
Because we do know the market is a huge, huge share of the market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Well,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think just building on that last point that you made there, what we've heard from the panelists today is that the key is actually something called universal design. So it's not necessarily creating bedrooms that are exclusively for disabled people, but the key to unlocking the opportunity and the revenue is building bedrooms that are inclusive for as many people as possible. I think that's where the business case is really strong. Any other questions from the audience? No other questions? Okay, so before we close today, I just want to pose one more question to each of you. In 30 seconds or less, I'd like each of you to share the one piece of technology that you would like to see integrated into hospitality over the next year or two to improve access for all. And I'll start with you, Fiona.
An improved booking facility. I just want to be the same as everybody else. Everyone else can do it online or on their app. I have to ring up 4 or 5 times to find out whether a hotel's accessible or not. And if you use our galleries, you won't have to deal with those 5 phone calls.
Thanks, Fiona. Peter.
Selfishly, my own product. Just the ability for anyone to be able to walk into a hotel and communicate in any language or with any communication disability instantaneously will just do so much for people being able to enjoy themselves when they're traveling for leisure or business.
And people with hearing loss are a huge proportion of disabled people.
Absolutely. Hundreds of millions in the world. And in the US, every 60 seconds or every 8 seconds, someone is turning 60, and 1/3 of them will have hearing loss by that age.
Thank you, Peter. Ed, same question to you.
For me, my big bugbear in hospitality is the red pull cord alarms in accessible bathrooms, bedrooms, and toilets. And whilst in the last couple of years we've designed, some innovative push button technology to mean you don't need a red pull cord alarm, it's still an imperfect solution. So I'd love to see voice activated alarms. I'd love to see sensors under flooring that if you fall, it'll be able to detect someone's on the floor and be able to trigger the alarm. So let's move the industry away from red pull cords, please.
Excellent. And don't tie them up if you do have red pull cords. I'd like to thank you all for joining us for this session and ask that you extend your thanks to Fiona, Ed and Peter for sharing their wealth of experience on this important topic and wish you all a pleasant and productive rest of show. Thank you.